And as these brew, giving them a nice stir and shake to make sure all of the plant material is covered. If some of the plant material pokes out, especially fresh, if it's the fresh stuff, it can get some mold or other issues like that, which we don't want. So keeping it a good stir to make sure everything's going good and nothing's going ransom is an excellent idea. All right, that's gonna get some cheesecloth put over it as well. And now we have our mullein. And these are first year plants that were all nice and fresh. And if you're familiar with mullein, they look like little cabbages kind of at this stage, I think. And they're so nice. I think that the second year leaves, mullein is a biennial, and so it lives 2 years. The second year is when it blooms. And I think the second year leaves are great for medicine too. Some herbalists say, you know, only the first year, by the time they're blooming, the second year. Sorry, I'm realizing I'm doing this all out of sight here. By the time they're blooming the second year, that a lot of the medicinal benefit has gone out of the leaves, but they seem to work quite well for me either way. But when I have a chance to get fresh first year leaves, then I always will grab those instead, just to make sure they're more potent. And these have been wilting for an entire day. Actually, these guys are fuzzy. They're well adapted to not losing moisture and to staying hydrated in really dry conditions in the late summer. And so I left these to dry for two nights. I harvested them in the evening. And so some of the outer leaves are a bit crispy, but then the inner leaves are still have some moisture in them and are still soft. Some of my herbally infused oils, I like to double infuse them, and so what that means is I want them extra concentrated, the final product, and so I will mix up my batch of oil and brew them and let that set for an appropriate number of weeks until it's good and infused, and then I will strain the plant material out and then add more plant material right back in of the same variety and the same type, just fresh new plant into the same oil, so that it gets double and triple infused with goodness. Sometimes you can't quite pack enough fresh plant material in with your oil to make it as concentrated as you would like it to be. And so that's just an easy way to get a bit more of a concentrated product without risking spoilage, because if you ruin your ratio, if you get your ratio off of plant material to oil and you add too much plant material to too little oil, you're going to have issues with it going rancid, because your plant material just doesn't have enough oil to keep it preserved long enough to infuse. So double or triple or however many you want infusing works really well, and that's what's going to happen with these guys. This is going to turn into ear oil, actually, a garlic, mullein, frankincense infused ear oil. But right now I'm only going to add the mullein in. And these guys are going to infuse and then get strained out, and then some of the other goodies are going to get added in. The mullein is very big and bulky and fuzzy and just takes up quite a lot of the room in the jar. And so it's easier to wait until I strain this out and then add my other goodies to infuse when there's more room for them to really soak and macerate in the oil properly. So I kind of do it in stages. This oil will be brewing. I mean, I have certain infused oils that have brewed for years as I add more and more things, which if you're keeping oils that long, you need to be sure and keep them in a cool space, and certain oils will go rancid much faster than a few years. It does depend what you're adding to them, though. A lot of the really heavily infused oils that I've made with things like frankincense and cloves and things like that just last for years and years and years, because the herbs themselves have so many preserving properties in them that they really help keep the oil from going rancid. And you can use all the parts of the mullein. You could use the flowers, you can use the leaves, you can use the roots, you know, anything, any of the pieces and parts that you get. But with first year plants, you just mostly have leaves. I have a few root nubs on a couple of these that I'm just going ahead and throwing in. But predominantly it's leaves here. Alrighty. I think this is the last batch I'll do here. The video is getting long. And there's always a lot to say, especially on these type videos, which is a lot of times why I don't end up making them while I'm working. And because a lot of this is so old hat to me that I forget to comment on things that are kind of obvious that people wonder about later. And I totally forget to even mention it. And so hopefully I'm covering the basics here, and if anyone has questions, you can totally post them in the comments below. I often don't have time to answer all of the questions that I get. I get quite a lot of questions on a lot of the videos that I post, and so, but if I can, if I have time, I am happy to answer what I can, and if I have no idea, I'm also happy to say I have no idea about that. Alrighty, so I'm going to grab a jar here. That made a little bit more than I thought. I was going to put it all in a pint jar, but it's not going to fit, so I have to grab a quart here. Alrighty, so I'm just going to stuff it all in. You can use, they have these canning, funnel isn't the right word. There's a word for it. They're a little apparatus that you just put in the top of the jar that has a little, like a funnel that comes out, but it doesn't go down to a small point. It just goes down to the width of the jar so that you can put your plants in a bit more haphazardly and easy, and it just funnels them all right into your jar. I am not going to actually use every bit of this in this jar for this oil, as some of this is going to go in a tincture. I have a tincture brewing of flowers. Mullein flowers bloom very sporadically, and you know they have really long flower spikes, but they bloom one or two today and one or two tomorrow and one or two the next day. So it's a pretty tedious process, and you have to go out every day and pick literally a very tiny handful of flowers. And so I've been adding to a tincture that I've been making fresh flowers as I get them every day, but I'm going to add some leaves as well just to give it a little extra oomph. Alrighty, I think that's good. And this one I'm going to use olive oil on as well. I really like olive oil for ear oils in particular. It seems to be one of the most soothing for irritated and cranky ear canals, because when you get an ear infection or just irritation in the ear canal, like babies when they're teething and stuff like that especially, they can have a ton of inflammation in their ear canals, and it can seem like they keep getting repetitive ear infections when in reality it's not an infection, it's just inflammation and irritation from their teeth coming in and the swelling in that area. And this olive oil in particular, but especially infused olive oil with a few different things, is so soothing for that kind of pain, and can take a crying baby from just hysteria to just calmness. My son, who's just turned 7 now, when he was little, I had a whole host of potions and stuff that I used on him all the time, and so we rarely, had nights, where there was no sleep or anything like that, and if we did, it wasn't because of him. But one night in particular, he woke up, and as you can see, I'm just using this knife to allow the oil to go all the way down to the bottom, because it can look like your jar is full of oil, but it's not anywhere full. You want to make sure all of the plant material is nice and soaked, and then keep adding oil until your whole, until all of your plant material is submersed. But anyways, this one particular night, he woke up crying and screaming, and it was obviously a pain cry. Any moms who know the difference, in cries of babies of pain and tired and hungry, etc., knows the pain cry. And so I immediately went for my tummy drops, which is a kind of gripe water colic remedy that's a standby for me for infants, and that didn't help at all. And we did several other things. A tummy dance is what I called it, which is just movements with their legs that helps their intestines release gas if they're having gas pains, and that often helped if he was having a hard time, and that didn't help at all. And I went through several other things, you know, all in the period of about 3 minutes, and nothing was helping. And I said, okay, grab the ear oil, to my husband, and he ran in the bedroom and grabbed it, and I was like, I don't know why his ears would just randomly be hurting. That seems like a really random thing to just wake up crying to. But leaned him on his side and put a few drops of oil into his ears, and literally within seconds he had stopped screaming and was just calm and very soothed. And he went right back to sleep and woke up about 2 hours later, which is pretty normal. I noticed that these type drops, if they're being used for irritation and ear pain, wear off in a couple hours. He woke up crying again in a couple hours, and of course this time I knew what to do, so immediately used a few more eardrops, and he went right back to sleep, and within a couple of days was fine. It was just swelling and irritation from him teething again. I just hadn't realized he was teething again quite yet. And so anyways, I am a firm believer in this type of stuff. I've never seen any over-the-counter stuff that's safe for children do anything, you know, similar to these very safe, very simple herbal remedies. So I am a huge fan. All right, this guy's gonna get cheesecloth put over him as well, like this, and then we are going to put him into a crock pot. I've been brewing these in the sun, but these guys I want to keep a really close eye on, and so I'm going to do them inside. So whatever size crock pot you have, I will probably end up using my large crock pot because I have quite a few jars that I'm going to make. I'm just not going to do them all here on camera because that'll get way too long. But just put a little towel or washcloth in the bottom, set your jar in like so, fill up about, you know, half full or even above, but you don't want it to have any chance of going up and getting any moisture into your jars since the tops aren't going to be covered. And also, if you're doing this in a crock pot like this, having the cheesecloth hang down is not a great idea, as it will wick up moisture and just keep this constantly damp, which while it won't usually ooze into your jar, it's just not a great idea. We want to keep this as dry as possible. So keeping your cheesecloth, you know, wadded up a little bit and under your rubber band, and then keeping the water level below, oops, sorry, I'm out of the camera here, keeping your water level below wherever your cheesecloth ends is definitely what I would recommend. So they go on low. You don't need to put a lid on or anything like that. We don't want to get them really, really hot. We're not trying to cook them. We're trying to just keep them warm and help the oil extract the goodies out of the plants. So keeping them on low with the towel in the bottom and water, and with the lid off for about a day, 24 hours-ish. You can go a little bit longer, you can go a little bit shorter, but 24 hours is a good time period. A lot of times I leave mine in for 24 hours if I'm doing them in the crock pot, and then put a lid on them, or just leave them like this for another week or two, and then strain. So just because you pull them out of the crock pot doesn't mean you have to strain it right then, but you want to keep them a good, nice, warm temperature for at least 24 hours to get a really good extract. Alrighty. I will have to do some other videos maybe on what these things are for. I know that's a lot of what the comments that I get below are is, oh, what is it for? Can you go into more details on what it's for? And in videos like this, I feel like I would end up talking for 3 hours if I went into all of the uses of mullein, etc. But I do mention a few things, like the calendula and the St. John's wort are really good and soothing for things. What was this? Oh, the plantain is going to go into a salve. This plantain is going into a salve. Maybe I didn't mention that. I don't think I did. I talked about this being a bug tincture that was in the vinegar. This plantain, in addition to being really soothing for bug bites and things like that, it's just really soothing for any kind of contact dermatitis, burns, etc. Just skin owies, you know, and irritation. And so this is going to go into a soothing salve, and probably some lip balms for really dry, cracked lips. And then the mullein, like I mentioned, is great for ear infections. It's really good for lung and congestion issues, which is what the tincture that I'm making is for. But these guys are good for so much more than this. It would just take way too long to go into all of that. But I hope this has been helpful. yeah, I hope it's enjoyable for everyone to see kind of the inner workings of some of these potions. And when these get done brewing and I am making salve and balms and things like that, I will do my best to come back and actually show that process, because I think it's a lot more fun. You know, it's super fun to wind up with a salve that you can actually use, or, you know, a lip balm or something like that. And it's exciting, which I think this stage is exciting too, but not quite as exciting on video maybe. Alrighty, until next time, I will talk to you guys soon, and happy growing and happy harvesting.